Hi everyone, this is Kathy with a quick overview of contingency theory by Fred Fiedler, which was discussed in David's video, and also the situational leadership model by Hersey and Blanchard. The go-to book for most people on leadership theories is this one by Peter Northouse, and this is available online via the university library. You'll just need to go to the reading list. You can find it from the reading list, click on online access from there, and then you'll need to put in your usual university username and password. So Fred Fiedler's contingency theory developed back in the 60s. As David was talking about, Fiedler was trying to determine the relationship between leader's style, and organisational performance. And at the heart of this theory is this scale that was developed, the least preferred co-worker scale. And that was designed to determine a group leader's orientation or style. So whether they were more task-oriented or more people relationship oriented. So a group leader would be asked to answer a survey, a questionnaire really, of bipolar things. So think about the person that was within their group and who they most struggled to work with. So who was their least preferred co-worker. And then they would answer this series of questions about it. So do they find that person friendly, unfriendly, so on. And that score then determined whether they were more task-oriented or more people-oriented. So higher scores, more people-oriented, lower scores, more task-oriented. And the theory basically suggested that leadership effectiveness is contingent or dependent on the following situational factors. So their style, their orientation, whether they are task or people-oriented, and the leader's situational control. And that situational control was based on three factors. How structured the tasks are that group members were asked to deal with. So for instance, something like cleaning the coffee machine at McDonald's, very structured task, very limited options for how you might complete that. And we might say serving in McDonald's generally, fairly prescriptive kind of processes there about how that's done. The leader's own position power, so what level of authority they had, how far they could kind of reward group members or punish or coerce them. And then the leader-member relations, so the relationship between the leader and the group members, but also the relationship amongst those group members themselves. And he identified that more task-oriented leaders on the LPC survey were good in situations where there was a high degree of task structure and certainty, and where they'd actually got quite a high level of position power. Alternatively, in situations where there was really no structure, very unstructured tasks, and no real kind of authority at all. So we might say those kind of more chaotic situations where we need a more kind of task-oriented, get the job done type of leader. More people-oriented leaders were good where there was a moderate degree of structure and certainty, and where they had some but not complete power. And this is probably why today, with the type of work that we increasingly see, that organisations are looking for these softer skills, these more people or relationship-oriented skills, because we've got less situations where we've got very, very highly structured tasks, an awful lot less certainty, and most people would agree that few, if any, managers really ultimately prove to have absolute power. The other important thing about Fiedler's theory is that he actually believed that very few managers or leaders, whichever we want to call them, could actually adapt their style. And so effectively effective leadership was contingent on them working where their style is a fit. So, if we don't really fit in this situation, go and work somewhere where we do fit. Now, again, today that is highly impractical in many situations. Most organisations want people who can adapt their style. And this is where we come to another situational leadership theory, a model, that by Hersey and Blanchard, which has been developed over the years. And this is based on a belief that leaders can and should adapt their style, and that the best or most effective style depends on the developmental readiness, as they term it, of those being led, of the workers or the employees within the group. And there are 4 different styles. These are not expected to be styles that progress from style 1 to style 4 in a linear fashion. They might do. So for instance, if we have a young trainee who joins our organisation, very committed, enthusiastic, but very, very little experience, so quite low on competence, then we would expect to begin by being quite directive or telling them more what we needed them to do. Less on support, more just this is what you need to do. Over time, they might become more, we would hope they would become more competent, so they perhaps got moderate levels of competence, still be fairly committed and enthusiastic or quite highly committed, and in which case we could use a more coaching or selling style. Now, coaching in this particular kind of model has a rather different kind of approach from what we're thinking about in terms of coaching more today, where we're thinking about being less directive and more getting employees to kind of come up with answers and options for themselves. But here, coaching or selling style was high on both direction and support. So we started to put more support in for these individuals. Style 3, the supportive or participating style. It might be that a young trainee progresses to this stage, they've got a higher level of competence, and probably over time, commitment, enthusiasm will vary a little bit. That does for most of us who've been with organisations for quite a long time. And so would be quite high on support and much lower on direction at that stage because they're competent employees. Style 4, delegating or observing style. So this is for people who are very, very competent and very committed and motivated. So little support, little directions needed. But we should just be observing them, looking out for any signs perhaps that they're under stress, that they're facing undue kind of challenges at a particular time, and we might need to go back to being more supportive and kind of working a little bit more closely with them, having more conversations with them. Now, the leader's own position within an organisation might mean that they're dealing with people, if they're quite senior, who they would expect to just be able to support or delegate to, whereas a first-line manager might well be working with people they need to develop from the kind of style 1 directive stage through to people with very, very high levels of experience and very committed. So they may more regularly, for instance, use the full range of styles. So it is going to depend also on the kind of the type of leadership role somebody has, the type of people, the type of employees, how wide a range of employees an organisation has. Paul Hersey set up the Centre for Leadership Studies, and you can find that at situational.com and read a little bit more about this situational model. That is a perfectly valid source to use in this instance. Okay, I hope that helps, and I'll put a little bit more information about Fiedler's theory on Blackboard.